people. Okay, I think this is working. Fantastic. Shabbat shalom. You've heard that before? All right. All right. Well, I think we get started. We got to keep going until we get the zoom up, right? Buen Shabbat. Good Shabbos. Shabbat Shalom. Getting there. We're getting there. We're getting some energy. I feel it. I feel it. Eileen, how do you do with fire? You okay with fire? Yeah, we got 2 candles. We need them lit. Somebody's got to step up and do it. I'm going to invite everyone to rise in body or spirit. You're feeling good? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, all right. I'm going to invite you to stand up tall, even if you're home. Hello, Zoomers. Susan and Cheryl and Jill and Sarah and all the folks. I can't see everybody's name. But take it in. If you're walking in the door, just feel the love. Maybe stand up a little taller. There may be some people out there. They don't know. They're having a great time. All right. Yeah, so I'm going to invite you to stand up tall. And if you've got something in your shoulders that you've been holding this week, just let that go. You can keep lighting. The candles will be here. If you've got something in your tuchus, you got a tight tuchus, just let it go. Wiggle. Wiggle. Yeah. What if you got something, sometimes my eyebrow, you could put quarters in here. My eyebrow, just smooth that out. Maybe there's a jaw situation. Maybe there's a neck situation. Just let that be present. You could shake it out, Taylor said so. Shake it off. Anyway, I'm old, leave me alone. So, and I'm going to invite you to put your arms out. There could be someone next to you, so don't hurt them. And feel the, no, come back. Yeah. Feel the opening. Now that you've released some things, maybe you can let some things in. Let's let in the beauty of this moment. Once, twice, third time. We cover our eyes. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. And we say Amen. Open your eyes and check out those candles. It's Shabbos time. It's Shabbat. Yes, Shabbos Zeit. Go find somebody if they want and you want a Shabbos hug. I invite you to share that with that person. And if you're by yourself, hey Kai, you can give yourself a hug. It doesn't feel bad. It feels good. Oh, Yolanda, good Shabbos. Don't let me stop you from hugging. While you hug and chat, I'm going to sing a little song from Bialik on page 10. Just keep hugging, it's fine. The sun on the treetops no longer is seen. Come gather to welcome the Sabbath, our queen. Behold her descending, the holy, the blessed, and with her the angels of peace and of rest. Draw near, O Queen, and here abide. Draw near, O Sabbath bride. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShalom. Page 13. A malach is an angel. It's also a messenger. Maybe something gave you a message this week. Maybe you didn't want to hear it. Maybe you sent a message. What if the malach, the angel that has been looking for you all week, is an angel of peace and of sweetness and of light, and you just slow down enough? I just slowed down enough right now for that angel to catch up to me. Oh, thanks. I needed that. Thanks, angels. Page 12 and 13. Let's welcome them. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 19. Dodi li vani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Dodi li vani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Mi zotola min hamidbar, mi zotola mekuteret mor ulevona, ulevona. Dodi li vani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Dodi li vani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Libabtini achoti kala, libabtini kala, libabtini achoti kala, libabtini kala. Dodi li vani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Dodi li vani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Arise, Uri Tzafon, Uvo iteman. Uri Tzafon, Uvo iteman. Dodi li vani lo haroeh bashoshanim. Dodi li vani lo haroeh bashoshanim. You know what's just hilarious to me? Let me tell you, Amy Lighthill. I was just looking at the Hebrew, Uri and Safon, like awaken, arise, O voitim, come south wind. And I was just, shouting it out. And then you all stood up. Like, arise. Like, I was just looking at the Hebrew. And then you did what I said. So I can never, what's that? Don't get used to it, right? I could never say they never listened to me. Because you did, just that moment. That was fantastic. So you can be seated. But thank you for going along with what I was saying. What's that? You said it right. I did. I was just like, we'll read some phone, come on. Lighten up, fantastic. That's good, thanks.
Many of us standing and sitting seem to be like what services were all about as kids.
That's right. And if nothing else, I want to completely replicate the experience you had as a child. That's when I became a rabbi. That was my goal. Like, are you wearing a scratchy wool suit under your? That could be. Should we sing a psalm? I think we should do a psalm somewhere. That's like normally what we do. How about We do Romamu? Do we ever do that? Romamu Adonai Eloheinu. No? Let's do it. Yolanda's with me. All right, page 35. Yeah? This is from the Psalms, right? This is Psalm 99, that the star, is there a transliteration? There might not be. But exalt, there's a whole entire synagogue named Romamu. There's an exaltation here, and then we bow down at the holy mountain because there's holiness all around us. What mountain did they were probably talking about a mountain in Jerusalem, but it could be any mountain. Could be, there's mountains in Georgia, right? Couple, three, a lot of mountains. We're in the foothills of the Appalachians. Yeah? All right. So, I don't know. Maybe look out. Maybe there's like a tiny little mountain somewhere in Stone Mountain. That one's complicated, right? What's that? Kennesaw. Yeah. Or just like, I don't know. Just feel, is there something that brings you exaltation just looking at it? Maybe it's in here. Maybe it's another person's eyes. Maybe it's outside. Let's try it. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. That's going to bring us to Lachadodi. This was written by the Kabbalists in Tzfat. Yeah, they were the guys that said, there's some secrets sometimes right in the bits of grass and the sky and the clouds. You never know where the sparks of the divine are going to show up. But they tried to hang out in Jerusalem, and the Jews in Jerusalem said, y'all are a bunch of kooks. You need to get out of here. Yeah? And so where'd they go? They went to Tzfat. They went north. Yeah? Sometimes, the people in Jerusalem, we've been loving Jerusalem a long time, but they don't always know all the answers. And so look what's happened. Now we sing the song that was removed, the people who were removed from the community because their ways of thinking were too strange. Now we follow them. Yeah? Here's something else they did. They went out into the fields to greet the Shabbat bride. So I'm wondering, I know there's a good chunk of us, but the door's right there. Do you think I'm sorry, Zoom people. You might not hear us. I don't know. Hopefully my microphone will keep working. But I think it's a beautiful night. We should go outside and sing Lachadodi. You good with that? All right. We're on 41, and then we're going to do the top of each page, 41, 43, 45, and so on. Wherever you see a bride, just welcome any bride, of any gender, of any species. Lechadodi likrat kahala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kahala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad hishmianu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad Hashem multiferet ve'letila lechadodi likrat kahala Pene Shabbat nekabela lechadodi likrat kahala Pene Shabbat nekabela Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha ki mekor, haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof maaseh. במקשבה תחילה אליך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה 45 התעוררי כי באורך Kumi ori, uri, shir daberi kevod Adonai, alayich nigla, lecha dodi, likrat kahala, pene Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kahala, pene Shabbat, page 47, Yaminu small, Tifro tzivi et Adonai, Taritzi al yadish, Ben partzi, Venismecha, Venagila, Lecha dodi, Likrat kala, Pene Shabbat nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, Pene Shabbat nekabela, boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha, ובצולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה יאי די 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 יאי די 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 יאי די 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 Okay. Everybody made it back? All right, well, that was a highlight, at least for me. Psalm 92 says you should be grateful for the things that go well. Tov lahodot l'Adonai. It's good to give thanks. So, what's going well for you? What's on the right track? Anything? I see you, my friend Xavier. Yeah.
I had a group interview for a scholarship yesterday, and I think it went really well.
You had an interview for scholarship. Wow. Is it the scholarship I think it is?
No.
Different scholarship. You're a scholarship maniac. That's crazy. Nice. I would give you the scholarship. All right, but they didn't. Well, maybe they did ask me. All right. Anyone else? Something going well? Yes, Tom.
So we were on vacation in
Uh-huh.
St. Thomas in Birchmount. We got to make a minion at the synagogue there for a bar mitzvah.
You made a minion at the synagogue in St. Thomas.
Just
Just randomly.
walked in because I wanted to see the synagogue.
And it was a bar mitzvah? So they wouldn't have been able to read the Torah without you guys.
Well, they had,
They were reformed. They had Zoom.
They were reformed.
no, we made a minion in the synagogue.
Oh, so they had Minyan on Zoom, but you made it a ganza Minyan. Anyway, good, nicely done, Yishkoach. Anyone else? Something going well? Yes, Miss Sharon.
I'm going to just say good health.
Good health, fantastic. Yes, I feel like someone is begging to say something. Jean, is it about your middle school, Grant?
Although he is on his first international trip, he's
He's
in Panama tonight.
in Panama. And does he still like middle school? Okay, was that it, or was there another thing? No, I just remember we had a running thing for a while. Yeah.
What is going well is
Yeah.
I have two closets in my bedroom, and one of them was somewhat flooded a few
Oh my
years
God.
ago, and it is nicely drying out.
Your closet is drying out. Yeah. I feel like there's a metaphor there somewhere, someplace, Gene. We'll have to come back. True Western song. Sure. Yes, let's go with that. Okay. Kayla? You went to Costa Rica. What was your favorite part of Costa Rica? What was it? Swimming. Oh my goodness. I love swimming. Fantastic. You must have a nice dad. Take you to Costa Rica. No. Mom took us to Costa Rica. Yeah, Arim.
I got to be a background extra again for Cobra Kai.
You're an extra again for Cobra Kai. Do you have a union card?
That's really cool.
Do you have a union card that you keep?
No, it's non-union.
It's non-union. Oh man, I think we got to figure this out. I don't know. All right. Well, I see big things for you. We'll say we knew you when. That's good. Anyone on Zoom? Something going well? Like I'm seeing. Oh, Steven. Yeah. You want to unmute?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
We leave for Italy on Sunday, and we just found out we'll be able to celebrate Passover in Florence.
Passover in Florence. Oh my goodness. We're gonna hide in your luggage. I'm going with you. Nice. For all the things going well. Thank God for them. Let's see, page 49. It's not here in the transliteration, but I think we know. It's second to last line. Ma gadlu ma'asecha ya, me'od amku machshavotecha. How great, ma gadlu. It's an exclamation. How great are your deeds? This is page 49. Yeah. There's no transliteration. Yeah, I know. That's sad. Ma gadlu. Why don't you just try it? Ma gadlu. Ma'asecha ya. Me'od amku. Machshavotecha. All right, let's try it. Ma gadlu. Ma'asecha ya. Me'od amku machshavotecha. Magalu Masecha ya Me'od amku machshavotecha. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Magalu Masecha ya Me'od amku machshavotecha. Never did it that way with the echo. I like that. That's nice. Chatzi Kaddish on page 55. It's going to go right into Baruch Hu on 57. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah B'amad divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayecha Chaye dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala Bagala Uvizman Kariv Veimeru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Olam Olam Mehal Maya Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yit'aleh, V'yithalal, Shemei Dekudesha, Barichu Leila, Min Kol Berchata, V'shirata, Tushbechata, V'nechamata, Damiran B'yalma, V'yimeru, Amen. Ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da. Baruchu et Adonai, Hamevorach, Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Baed Yadai Dai 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 Yadai Dai Dai Dai. You may be seated. From Marge Piercy, a scarf trailing over the lilac sunset. Fair weather clouds, Suris uncinus silk chiffon, twilight softens the air, whispering, "Come, lie down with me. Untie the knots of the will. Loosen your clenched grip, barren hills of bone. Here, no edges to hone, only the palm fallen open as a rose about to toss its petals. What you have made, what you have spoiled. Let go. Let twilight empty the crowded rooms, quiet the jostling colors to hues of swirling water, pearls of fog. This is the time for letting time go. Like a released balloon dwindling, tilt your neck. Let your face open to the sky. Like a pond catching light, drinking the darkness. 59. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzavahot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid, yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hamahari v'aravi. All right, I'm going to try this. I've never led this before. Let's see how I do. This is by Rami Shapiro, Ahavat Olam, on page 61. I think there's enough people who will help me out if I get stuck. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too bitter to hear. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are love, love, supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. Embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled. Ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. The last line on 63, we'll go to the Shema on 65. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. On page 73, 3.5 lines from the bottom in the Hebrew. The transliteration, if you're looking for it, is on 285. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם emet. I invite you to go way in the back of the book. 768. So we're coming up on Passover. Passover. Yeah, you like Passover? What do you like about it? Gefilte fish. Every 5-year-old's favorite gefilte fish. Exodus is not just once. It's not history although it's always history, but it's always real. Because there's always Pharaoh, and there's always somebody who is under Pharaoh's heel. And Michael Walzer reminds us here on page 768 that Micha Mocha isn't just a nice story that happened a long time ago. It happens all the time. And so what's our role in that story? But join me, 768, top of the page. So pharaonic oppression, deliverance, Sinai and Canaan are still with us, powerful memories shaping our perceptions of the political world. The door of hope is still open. Things are not what they might be, even when what they might be isn't totally different from what they are. We still believe, many of us do, what the Exodus first taught, or what it has commonly been taken to teach about the meaning and possibility of politics and about its proper form. First, wherever you live is probably Egypt. Second, there is a better place, a world more attractive, a promised land. And third, that the way to the land is through the wilderness. There is no way to get from here to there except by joining together and marching. On page 79, Song of Liberation. Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai Micha mocha Nedar ba'kodesh Nora Tehilot Osei Feleh Malchutecha Rahu Vanecha Bokeh Ayam Lifnei Moshe uMiriam Zeli Anu ve'amru Adonai Yimloch Adonai Yimloch Le'olam va'ed Yadadai-dai-dai-dai-dai Yadadai-dai-dai-dai-dai V'nehemar ki fara Adonai et Yaakov G'layom me'od chazak mimenu Baruch ata Adonai Ka'al Yisrael. Say amen. Do we still have these handouts with the two prayers on them? Did they make their way into the room? Or it's okay. I can just read them on my own. As we prepare for Hashkivenu, it's a prayer for those who are kidnapped and missing. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless and protect and guard those who are abducted and taken hostage from their homes, their villages, their kibbutzim, from military posts and from fields of dance, and who are now in grave danger. We and the people of Israel are praying on their behalf. May the Holy Blessed One have compassion upon them and bring them out from darkness, from the shadow of death. Break their bonds and deliver them from distress and redeem them speedily, returning them to their families, their towns, and their homes, into fields of dance and joy. May there be fulfilled in them the verse from Isaiah, those redeemed by God will return. They will enter Zion with singing, and everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them. Sorrow and sighing will flee away. Let us say amen. Page 81. Second second line in the middle of the page. If you want the transliteration, 83, second line, last two words. I think I've got that right. V'tagnenu beitza tova. Did I start the wrong place? Ufros aleinu. Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha. Thank you. V'tagnenu beitza tova milfanecha v'hoshienu. Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha v'tagnenu beitza tova milfanecha v'hoshienu. One more time. Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha v'tagnenu beitza tova milfanecha v'hoshienu. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. It says, decree for us a worthy daily lot. It's also a taknin, it could be a healing. Yeah. Heal us. Heal us with goodness. Save us for the sake of your great name. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim, v'al kol ha'olam. Blessed are you, compassionate one, who spreads your canopy of peace over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem, and over the entire world. We rise in, amen, indeed, we rise in body or spirit. Vishamru is on page 85. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam uvayom hashvi Shabbat vaynafash Shabbat vaynafash Shabbat vaynafash v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. In a minute, we are going to pray the Amidah, our standing prayer in the evening. It is said individually, privately. I want to turn your attention to the fifth of the seven. There are 7 blessings in the Amidah on Shabbat. 7 days, 7th day. Makes sense, yeah? If you look on page 101, this is the end of the 5th blessing. It says, "V'techazena einenu b'shuvcha l'tzion barachamim." And this says, "May our eyes behold your homecoming." Yeah, it's something like that. I mean, that's a good translation, but it's sort of like, "May your eyes be turned back in your turning to Zion," but with This is with merciful intent. That sounds very like a business letter. But barachamim is with compassion. Yeah. So this was the prayer that Jews who were in exile prayed about. We want to go back to Zion. Yeah. Help us out. Be compassionate to us. And now the words feel different, at least to me, right? Look back on Zion with compassion, because there aren't a lot of folks speaking with compassion and acting with compassion right now in that space. And so as we pray, I invite you to think about what it would look like to have a land that was ruled not by the fist and not by unalloyed might, but by compassion. So that's going to be, this Amidah of ours is going to be on page 90 to 107, after we say the line at the top of 90 to 91, and just take your time and let your mind dream big, because we need big dreams right now. And when you're done, of course, when you get to the end of your Amidah, please be seated. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Open my lips, beloved one, and let my mouth declare your praise. words of prayer and our heart's meditation be seen favorably, beloved one, our rock and our Redeemer. Say amen. Take a moment to hold close those who are in need of healing, whether it is physical healing, emotional, mental, spiritual healing. I'm going to pray the Debbie Friedman, Misha Berach, and we've got a list of names up here. After the first verse, I will read this list. If there's any other names, remember how much your prayers matter. Cures are not always possible, and people don't always get better, but there's always some kind of healing that's possible. And so I invite you to lift up those souls who need your light now. That'll be in between the two verses, of course, and then we'll finish with the second verse. Mi shebeirach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Scott Epstein, Ali Sharman, Terry Egdahl, Richard Adler, Roseanne Glick, Martin Glickstein, Patty Johnson, Victoria Isbister, John Isbister, Carl Pruitt, Bowen Harbuck, Anna Levy-Sprick, Jenny Michelson, Ruth Canfor, Nell Meyer, Dory Perling, Nancy Rosenblum, Renee Franco, Shelley Kotliar, Shalom Yisrael Ben Elkafega, Maria Rosotto, Sharon Bronstein, Bob Schwartz, Ellen Clymer. Any other names we want to add? Steve.
Our friends this time and they lost their mother yesterday. David and Kathy Moss.
They went over here. Anybody on Zoom who wants to unmute and say a name out loud? Oh, somebody else. Sorry, Margie. Mi shebeirach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. Blessed are you, Adonai, healer of the sick. We say Amen. So, we do have a guest darshanit today. I'm really excited about that, and really grateful to the folks who have brought her here. I can't help myself. A little bit of Torah that from this end of the room. It's Parshat Tazria, which is every rabbi's favorite parsha. Yeah, skin afflictions, and mold in the house. Inspirational, no doubt. Right? So what the rabbis always have to do is we figure out, what are we going to say about this? This is not easy, right? And so there's all sorts of interpretations. Mei HaShiloach, the Izbitzer Rebbe, connects, like some rabbis do, connects the affliction with a character defect. And it's always really hard for us, right? Because you don't want to think somebody who's suffering physically is suffering because something they did, right? It's not the best theology. It's not certainly not theology a lot of us like. But okay, so we use that as a jumping off point. What are the character defects that they talk about? Sometimes it's lashon hara, a speech that hurts other people. Meir Shliach says the character defect that that this skin stuff comes from is from rage, which is fascinating because I think actually when we get upset, sometimes we can break out in some sort of physical manifestation, right? He says this defect of character is more common in greater people. So if you get angry a lot, so he's on your side, right? Because they can't always see, they're always looking for something to be better, right? So I don't know. Seems like a good way to get out of being angry all the time. But he says to deal with this character flaw, the person has to get used to looking kindly, gently, and benevolently upon the world, right? And so if rage is happening for you, figure out how to go against that, to contradict. I don't know what the word is. Go against, right? Figure out how to handle your rage, and the way to do it is to look for goodness, right? We are surrounded right now by rage from every corner. So much rage. Days of rage, you might even call it, right? And the actions are rageful actions. He invites us. How do you do this? You take an ayin hatov, a good eye. You should look at the world and want God to shower God's abundance on the whole world. The whole world. Doesn't say, he says, you should want nice things for the Jews, right? But the whole world, which is hard for us sometimes when we feel besieged, beleaguered, yeah. It's one of the reasons why it's really cool to have Dr. Rothschild here, is because she's seen difficulty in this world and sometimes a world of rage and responded only with love and with truth-telling and with kindness and compassion, bringing many years of being an OBGYN to places where it's not so easy to find that kind of medical care and that kind of support. There's a reason that her words have been printed in Seattle Times, the New York Times, because she's looking for the good. She's bringing this characteristic, I think, to the world. And before we invite you up, we have our president is on, seeing his dad in Toronto. And so if you'll indulge us, Dr. Rothschild, just for a moment, we're going to invite Peter to speak, and then the bima is yours.
Thank you, and good evening. Shabbat shalom to everyone in Atlanta. I am zooming in from Toronto. And I would acknowledge that I am zooming in from the land of a great diversity of First Peoples of the land of Canada. Too many First Peoples in this land to cite by name. So to wish everyone a Shabbat shalom. And the first thing I want to say is that it is so wonderful to see so many people. When I logged on at 7:25, I saw about 3 people, and I worried for a moment. And there are many, many people now in the room there, and a good number of us on Zoom, and that always, fills my heart to see us all gathered together. I think a couple of things that I want to say on this occasion, and in welcome to our guest, is that a night like this is what happens at CBH on account of and through the labor of our engaged congregants. This is a congregant-driven night, and I will tell you that there was a moment when this idea first came up that some of us in leadership or on the staff took a gulp and wondered if there was really enough time to pull this together. And again, the energy and the engagement of congregants made this happen. The mission of our congregation, which I won't read in full, but it does commit us to, or set our vision to a bold and expansive Jewish identity, emphasizing inclusivity and social justice. And so to me, a night like this just sits right at the heart of that mission and those parts of our mission. So it is with great gratitude to the members of the Palestinian Justice Common Interest Group that sits essentially within our Tikkun Olam Vod, if anyone is actually interested in the bylaws and the org chart, but more importantly to these engaged congregants that we're here tonight and have this opportunity. And the last thing I wanted to say is sort of connecting the topic on which Dr. Rothschild is going to speak to Shabbat. You know, at first glance, you could think, well, wait a minute, Shabbat is for rest. Why potentially rattle the mind with such a tough topic? But I think that at moments of rest, we are also given the opportunity for reflection. And reflection, then lets our attention come to where it's important for our attention to come. And there is no one speaker, there is no one night that is going to answer all of our questions or resonate at all moments with all members of our congregation. And tonight won't be that. But I think it's clear to all of us that the topic that we're going to hear tonight and all think about together tonight is one that we absolutely cannot turn away from. And so we will reflect on it and engage with it together tonight. And I really think that that is the best of CVH. So I'm proud to be here tonight, and I'm proud to welcome Dr. Rothschild on behalf of the Board of Directors of Congregation Beit Havarim.
Do you want to stand here? Do you want to stand here? Doesn't matter. What's, this is good? Okay, let's make sure this is on.
Yeah.
Seems like it is.
So thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here, and Shabbat Shalom to everybody. And I can just say there are not a whole lot of synagogues that invite me to give their sermons, so I really deeply appreciate it. This is not the first one, though, but they're not very often. So I'm going to be reflecting on sort of what does it mean to be Jewish? How do we deal with being Jewish in a time of catastrophe? And I also looked at the Torah portion because I thought, well, I'm in the temple. I should look at the Torah portion. And, the way it looked to me, it was all about purification after childbirth and menses, and if you have all these weird rashes and leprosy and all that kind of stuff. And, reading that stuff was kind of like, how am I going to relate to this, as a woman, as an obstetrician? It's kind of old-fashioned, alienating kind of stuff. And, I was thinking about how, we come from an ancient culture, and so there's a lot of, chauvinist attitudes towards menses and women and the mystery of our bodies and our icky periods and the fear of reproduction and that we bring forth life, and that makes men nervous, but it's also pretty amazing. And, I was like, how do I relate this to what I'm trying to talk about? And then I realized that this was really about the yearning to be pure. And how could I think about this in a more modern and secular fashion? The desire to be pure in body, in mind, in spirit, in our motivations, our work, and our politics. Because, we would all like to think of ourselves as aspiring to something good, to some kind of purity, to some kind of unassailable goodness. So I thought what I'm going to do, because this is such a tough topic, is do a little sharing about my life journey and how I got where I am. And, you can walk with me through it and take what you want to take from it. And then I'm going to bring it back to these reflections. So I was born in 1948, and you know what happened that year as well. And I had Orthodox grandparents who came from actually Western Ukraine. And so my parents grew up in a Yiddish-speaking household in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg. And they left Brooklyn, the shtetl of Brooklyn, as soon as they could. They married young and got out. And, My mother loved Thoreau, so they ended up in New England. And she wanted to be in a town with a lake, because Thoreau had a lake. So we ended up in a little New England town with a lake, and that's where I grew up. And it was basically sort of the immigrant child assimilationist dream, but it was complicated. I got very complicated messages as a child. So, you know, we were upwardly mobile, we were living in what was called exurbia, which is the place beyond suburbia, you know, where the people who couldn't afford the nicer neighborhoods in suburbia moved to exurbia. And, you know, we were sort of moderately multicultural, but we knew, and I knew very early, that we were different, that we were the endangered tribe. And, you know, I went to Hebrew school 3 days a week, and I had a bat mitzvah, and I put all my little quarters in the little blue and white J&F box and bought probably a whole forest of trees at this point. And I went to Israel when I was 14 with my family, and, you know, it was a magical trip. And I have the diary, so I actually know exactly how I was feeling. And one of the things that really strikes me when I read this diary is that I was very racist towards Arabs. I mean, I had a very derogatory view of the Arabs that I saw, and I had no idea about Palestine or Palestinian. You know, that was just not even in the air. So I was in love with Israeli dancing all through high school and in love with the kibbutz movement. So that's where I sort of started. But at the same time, I always felt like an outsider in a dominant Christian world. So I had a taste of anti-Semitism as a child. When we moved into this town, there were 4,000 people. And in 10 years, 10,000 people moved in, and they were all Jews who were leaving various shtetls in Brooklyn and Dorchester and Roxbury. So the classroom in the schools was mostly Jewish. And come Christmas, every classroom had a tree. And we spent all of December decorating the tree and singing Christmas carols. And so the Jewish parents complained. And there was a town meeting, it was a little town. And members of the town marched on the town meeting and accused the Jews of destroying Christmas. And this made national news. I was like, you know? So I had that experience. And I also had a mother who was a writer, and she wrote a lot about the Holocaust. And so I had a very youthful obsession with the Holocaust and with that kind of evil. But and as I grew up as a teenager, I could see that Jews were supporters of civil rights movement, of labor, of women, you know, that we were the progressives in this country. But I also discovered the limits to my mother's liberalism. So in college, I had an African-American boyfriend. You know, he's not a slouch. He was at Harvard. He was pre-med. He was a brilliant violinist. He played with the Boston Symphony Orchestra. But my mother told me that if I married him, Hitler's dream would come true, and that she would sit Shiva. And I don't know if she would have. I never got to find out. But, you know, it was really clear that she was worried about Jewish continuity and that she had her limits. So I went off to college, to a very WASPy elite women's college, you know, where like a girl touched me and said, I've never touched a Jew before. And in this college, you know, the legacy girls all majored in art history and went to Italy in their junior year abroad, and just like their grandmothers did. And my grandmother was illiterate. And you know, so my inheritance in this very bizarre place was basically one of, you know, Holocaust memory, trauma, tribalism, assimilation, and our pride in our ability to survive and flourish in what seemed to me kind of hostile, sometimes anti-Semitic world. So I knew that we were all victims and survivors, and I knew that a Holocaust could happen at any time, which is an interesting way to grow up. So I knew that my mother used to say we were chosen people, not only chosen to be persecuted, obviously, but chosen to make the world a better place. So what I took from that is my chosenness is my job to make the world a better place. And when it came to Israel, my mother was very clear. You know, she believed that Jewish pioneers bought the land, and after the Holocaust, Israel rose up out of the ashes, and the Jews deserve a place of their own. She also was very clear that, you know, we Jews, we're good people. I mean, we do not steal, massacre, rape, murder. We're just not those kind of people. And we also do not take what is rightfully ours, and we also do not share our victimhood. So I went to college with all of this in my brain, and you know, it was the Vietnam War. We had a few things to do, like stop the Vietnam War. And then I went off to medical school where, you know, my main goal was not to die in medical school, but you know, I learned about healthcare reform and became a feminist and all that kind of stuff. So I became a much more politically conscious kind of person. And I started, you know, I was a science nerd because I was pre-med, so I hadn't had any liberal arts education, so I started reading about colonialism and history and racism and imperialism. I was like, oh, this is how the world works. And gradually I realized that I had never met an Arab in my life. and that I had been taught a very one-sided version, a Jewish-centric version of Israel-Palestine kind of history. And it was a lot like the version of history I got in public school. You know, Columbus discovered America, and maybe Columbus was Jewish, maybe, Marano, maybe. And then the Pilgrims came, and they all had, you know, turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce with the Indians, and, you know, there was no Trail of Tears, there was no genocide, there was none of that was in my education there either. So as I sort of struggled through all of this, I realized that, you know, we are, as a group of people, much healthier as a democracy if we challenge our foundational injustices. And that's a very important thing. And I also became increasingly uncomfortable with the version of history that I learned in Hebrew school. And, you know, with the Israeli occupation, I kind of was vaguely aware of that, and I just knew that I was missing some major parts of the story. And as you are all fully aware, if I tried to talk about that, everybody started yelling at each other. So we didn't talk about that for a very long time. But, you know, it was kind of like an itch. I had to figure it out. So in the 90s, I was a member of Workers' Circle, then called Workmen's Circle, which is a secular Jewish social justice group. And I had kids in the Sunday school. And so with a group of people from Workers' Circle and Kahil B'rei Ra and New Jewish Agenda, I don't know if this rings any bells, we decided that we had to figure this out. So we started a dialogue group, and we invited, you know, every Palestinian in the Boston area, and also any lefty Jews we could find. And we said, tell us your story. And they did. And we got a very rapid education. And it was really eye-opening, and it was also sort of started to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And I really began to make the invisible people that I'd been with all my life visible. And also to confront, you know, the trauma and fear that was in my own body and my soul. And one of the things I found interesting is that the more I got to know Palestinians, the more I found that we had a common language. You know, trauma, denial, despair, endurance, recovery, all those kind of things. I felt like I'd met my cousins. And then, you know, as life went on, I started reading, you know, the Israelis opened up the archives, and all these new Israeli historians started writing, like, what actually happened. And so I started reading their books, and I started reading Palestinian historians, and, you know, listening to academics, and, you know, building on the knowledge that I was getting. And this really forced me to revisit what I understood about 1948, about the Nakba, about 1967, about, you know, the dispossession of 750,000 Palestinians. So the country of Israel started no longer being this sort of inspirational, spunky, you know, gathering of the exiles, light unto the nations kind of country, but a country like every other country. It has strengths, it has weaknesses, but it's like every other country. And this was sort of an astonishing piece of news for me. And so the more I asked questions, the more I could see that, you know, there were some amazing things about Israel, the universities, the culture, the medicine, the high-tech stuff, all the cultural institutions. This pretty amazing stuff had been accomplished. But it had been accomplished partly by privileging Jews over Palestinians and by occupying millions of Palestinians in the occupied territories and making their lives really miserable. And, you know, a couple of years ago, there was the nation-state bill that was passed in the Knesset, which officially legalized racism and Jewish supremacy over Palestinian citizens. And as I started going more often, I began to see that the schools were segregated and that there were tremendous disparities in the funding for Palestinian citizens versus Jewish citizens. And the Palestinians were really second-class citizens in Israel. So this was very troubling to me. But what was more troubling was that there was no civil rights struggle going on in Israel. It seemed like most Jewish Israelis, as long as there wasn't a war, were really quite happy with how things were. And that bothered me even more. So I began to use words like racist, settler, colonial state. I mean, that started to feel more like what I was seeing. And I also began to see a difference between anti-Semitism, you know, hating Jews and institutions and everything Jewish just because they're Jewish, from hating or being highly critical of Israel, which is a state and not a religion, and then with Zionism, which is a political ideology that privileges Jews over other people in historic Palestine. And I began to understand that those are actually different categories, and things get much clearer if you start talking about things in different categories. And as I learned more about the world wars, I could see that a lot of the discord that we see now can really be traced back to the consequences of post-World War imperial powers dividing up the Middle East. I mean, they just took their pens and divided it up. And they empowered minority groups to govern majorities. They created long-standing enmities. They funded oppressive dictators, had proxy wars. The whole colonial thing before was really a problem here. And I also learned a lot about anti-Semitism, that it was obviously very prominent in Europe and in the US, and culminated in the Holocaust. But it was actually not a problem in the Muslim world until the founding of Israel, where hatred of Jews and hatred of Zionism and mistreatment of Palestinians all merged. And so I think when we think about anti-Semitism in the modern era, we need to really nest it in the world of the alt-right, in white supremacy, in neo-Nazism, who also not only hate Jews, but they hate women and black people and brown people and Muslims and immigrants and LGBTQI people, basically anyone who's not part of the vision of the Aryan nation of armed white heterosexual men. And so this is clearly on an upswing. It is incredibly troubling. It's something we absolutely must be fighting against, but it's different than hatred of Israel. And now we have this bizarre phenomenon of neo-Nazis disparaging Jews, because we're Jews, but expressing admiration for Israel. And they see both Israel as a good place to sequester all these undesirable people, but also they really admire a powerful, well-armed state that's grounded in ethnic purity and is eager to do battle with Muslims and Iranians, and God forbid that they may be doing that really soon. And then as I became more public in my work, in speaking out, in educating, in learning, I bumped into very right-wing forces that do a lot of surveillance and Israel messaging, the camera, the AIPAC, Israel Action Committee, there's a whole, alphabet soup of these groups. And they are joined with the Christian Zionists, who are very right-wing and, really put pressure on our US Congress, and really muzzle dissent in our community. And so that also seemed very troubling that this was going on in our community. Because, the growth of all these right-wing forces, both in Israel and the US, who really punish people, people lose their jobs, people get doxxed, all this kind of stuff. This is actually very un-Talmudic. I mean, we're the people who are supposed to be asking lots of questions, 10 Jews, 20 opinions. This is very un-Jewish. And we can see that the younger generation is not going to put up with this. And if they're not able to ask questions and ask hard questions, their support of Israel is really diminishing. So as all this is churning through my life, and I'm having children and working and all this stuff, I really began to feel that my responsibility as a Jewish person that has this country that keeps saying it speaks in my name and keeps doing things that I don't agree with, and then as a US citizen who's funding a lot of this stuff, that I had to make a lot of noise, and I had to be trying to figure it out even more. And what I came to understand is that the Nakba, the catastrophe that happened in '48, is really ongoing. And that's what we're seeing in Gaza. And all the different peace processes that have been, decade after decade, are mostly process and not much peace. And I also realized, I was really into dialogue and coexistence for a very long time, but this yields very little unless the political realities change. And I'll tell you a story. I had a friend, she grew up in East Jerusalem, lovely Muslim woman, became a doctor. And when she was 14, her parents sent her to the Seeds of Peace camp in Maine. So she met all these Israelis that she, Jewish Israelis that she normally wouldn't meet, and they wrote plays, and they played soccer, and they did all the things that teenagers do. But when they turned 18, they went into the army. And she would see them at checkpoints, and they were the people that wouldn't let her through. So unless the political reality changed, it didn't matter how many soccer games she played with them. That wasn't enough. And so this led me to think, I really need to kind of support Palestinian resistance. I mean, most Palestinian resistance is nonviolent. And so then I began to support the boycott, divestment, sanction movement because it's a nonviolent resistance movement. And we know that the Israeli government will not give up power. It will not change its policies of aggression and suppression of Palestinians voluntarily. I mean, no government gives up power. That's not how the world works. So it's the role of the international community and Jews in the diaspora to make this change happen. And people say, well, if only we could get rid of Netanyahu and Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, then things would be okay. But that's not how it is. There was recently a poll that showed that 2/3 of Jewish Israelis would not support a two-state solution, would not support basic human rights for Palestinians. So there's a real problem here with our cousins in Israel. And I think that we have to remember that Israeli Jews have long advanced, enabled, or come to terms with the fact that their country has a military occupation that dehumanizes Palestinians. And when things are calm for Jews, it's a pretty good, it works quite well for them. Look how successful this country is. The other thing I became aware of is what we call intersectional issues. That gave me a way to talk about this with other people. So, you know, first of all, what we could do with $3.8 billion, I mean, we could make a very long list here. And if you look at something like police brutality and then understand that many of our police have been trained in Israel to be occupying force, and then they come to our cities and they basically behave like an occupying force, heavily militarized, that's a problem. Or if we see, you know, if they talk about weapons being field tested, they were field tested on Palestinians. Or if you look at the enormous amount of surveillance that's going on, a lot of that was developed in Israel and in the US, and we're all partners in this. So this is like bad for the world for this to be happening. And I really began to realize that Zionism privileges Jews and requires harm to Palestinians, and that I really couldn't support a movement where my own liberation was dependent on someone else's oppression. And you know, this reality is deeply corruptive to Jewish Israelis and to Jews everywhere. So I mean, just think about, you're an 18-year-old, you've been taught all your life that Arabs hate you, Palestinians want to kill you, you go through the military training, and you're stuck at a checkpoint 8 hours a day, you've got more weaponry on you than you could ever use, and you have enormous power over a civilian population that's trying to go to school, go to visit grandma, that's going to the pharmacy, and then you go home, and you're still an 18-year-old with a huge gun and all these attitudes. So there's rising domestic violence, and this is very corruptive to people's souls. And you know, I don't know if you've heard this, but a lot of young people say to me, Zionism has destroyed my Judaism, and we don't want to let that happen. And this is because many young US Jews are no longer willing to suspend the things that we love, democracy, tolerance, fighting for oppression, when it comes to Israel-Palestine. So I look at Jewish power in the 21st century, and it seems to be all about power and has nothing to do with being Jewish. I mean, ask, why do so many Israelis love Trump? Why is the Israeli government in bed with Christian Zionists, you know, who are planning for us all to be incinerated when they get sucked up to heaven? So I should say that I began to go to Israel-Palestine in 2004 as a doctor. I co-organized health and human rights delegations, and I did that annually for many years and then went on other delegations. So I've been going almost every year except during COVID. And I was last there in August. I was in Gaza in August. And I think we need to really think about, how do we think about what happened on October 7th? Now, I really understand that the reality for most Israeli Jews before October 7th was that Israel's a fragmented, diverse, crazy society. I mean, if you think about it, there's the rising power with the religious right. The settlers are getting more and more powerful. And right before the Hamas attack, there were massive, you know, hundreds of thousands of people demonstrating against Netanyahu's judicial reform because they thought it was anti-democratic. But you'll also note that Jewish Israelis would never be out demonstrating to end the occupation. So the Hamas attack obviously changed everything. And in Israel, there was just grief and despair and rage about the horrific loss of life and the injuries and the hostages. We all know this. And we also should remember that the border towns near Gaza and near Lebanon were evacuated, and many people have not yet gone home. And I think the big sort of injury for Israelis was that they thought they were safe. They thought that they had a military that could protect them no matter what. I mean, Israel's got one of the biggest militaries in the world, and they failed them. And they failed them partly because of the arrogance of the Israeli military. They actually had the Hamas plans. You can actually, I was in Gaza and I could see where Hamas trained, and it was right against the eastern border, and there was an Israeli guard tower there. And they just blew this off and said, these guys are never going to do this. So I think that that was also a tremendous injury to society. And it has caused an immense amount of fear and trauma and concern for the hostages, and a sense of humiliation in the military. And you know, what was the military doing? It was supporting soldiers and settlers in the West Bank who were very eagerly grabbing land, particularly in Area C, which is the 65% of the West Bank that's totally controlled by Israel. And so this this attack also rekindled fears in Israel of future attacks. It triggered that kind of existential threat even though Israel is one of the most militarily powerful countries in the world. Now, what I do, I'm involved with Jewish Voice for Peace Health Advisory Council, and so I write health and human rights reports on what's going on in the region. And so I did that. I was doing it monthly, and then COVID came, and then I was doing it weekly because no one was paying attention to COVID in the Middle East, and then I tried to get back to monthly, and then this attack happened. So I've actually been curating a health and human rights report every week since October 7th. And my sources are the United Nations, medical journals, a host of human rights groups, aid organizations, New York Times, CNN, as well as some of the alternative media such as Manda Weiss and Al Jazeera, Electronic Intifada, Democracy Now! And I also have a lot of personal contacts on the ground and medical contacts. And I also work with a group called We Are Not Numbers, which I've been doing for years. And this is a group of writers that I'm in charge of matching writers with young Gazan writers. So the English-speaking mentors receive the essays of the Gazan writers and help them to write a more powerful, more compelling essay, because in Gaza, there are no native English speakers that are teaching English because the Israelis won't give them permits. So I have this on-the-ground eyes dealing with all these young people and the stories that they're telling. And it's very clear to me that the Hamas attacks, the taking hostages, all the injuries and killings and everything, that's a war crime, and I'm very clear on that. But I think it's very important to remember that this didn't start on October 7th, that there have been 16 years of an incredibly crushing siege, and really a tremendous loss of hope. And there's been 57 years of occupation. And what we know is that oppressed people will resist oppression. And they are going to do that if they're Palestinians. They're going to do that if they're Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto. They're going to do that if they're slaves in Georgia. That's what oppressed people do. We may not like how they do it, but they are going to do it. So if we look at the Israeli response, what we see is the unleashing of a massive military response. I mean, Gaza is 6 miles wide and 28 miles long. And by the middle, about 3 months, Israel had already dropped the equivalent of 2 atomic bombs. And these airstrikes and the drone strikes have bombed 60% of the housing. They bombed civilian gatherings, markets, houses of worship, bakeries, restaurants, banks, ATMs. All the universities are in rubble. Most of the libraries, all the archives, a lot of the cultural institutions, the hospitals, the healthcare facilities, even the ambulances have been bombed. There's been a full electricity blackout since October 7th and a lack of fuel. And in Gaza, there are now 9 very partially functional hospitals out of 36, and a massive amount of injuries. And the other thing is that the population, many people went from the north to the south per directions, and they shelter in these hospitals thinking they're going to be safer. So you'll have a hospital that has 40,000 people sheltering on the hospital grounds. And during this time, over 33,000 people have been killed, and 2/3 of them are women and children. And over 76,000 people have been injured. And it's currently estimated that 10 children every hour lose one or both of their limbs. So that UNICEF now says that Gaza is the most dangerous place in the world to be a child. 75% of the population is displaced, and the Israeli military is using the denial of food and water as a weapon. So there is now well-documented hunger, starvation, and even famine in Gaza. It's more in the north than the south. And I read this article, a scientific article, that since January in the north, the average caloric intake is 245 calories a day. A friend of mine who's a physician who just got out, he was a skinny guy to begin with, lost 30 pounds in the last 6 months. What we know is that the air and the soil are contaminated, much of the cropland is destroyed, the livestock is mostly dead or starving to death. The fishing fleet has been destroyed. All the wastewater treatment plants are bombed, and now there's raw sewage pouring into the Mediterranean Sea. So people are talking about a sociocide, the destruction of a people, a culture, a memory. It's just being bombed to pieces. And since I'm an obstetrician gynecologist, I focused a lot on maternal health, and there are 5,500 women giving birth every month. They have no prenatal care. Most of them are internally displaced, and most of them have no idea where they're going to deliver. And so we have now 180 women a day delivering without medical care. There are women who've had cesarean sections without anesthesia because there's no medicine. And as you can imagine, a woman who's starving is not able to breastfeed. She's not able to bond to her baby. She needs formula. She has to have money to buy formula. She has to be able to find formula. She gets the powder. It has to be mixed with water. The water is all contaminated. This is like a medical catastrophe, excuse me, upon catastrophe. And it's now estimated that more people are going to die of infection than of being bombed. So the question is, for me, one of the many questions is it possible to destroy Hamas by completely decimating the civilian infrastructure, by massive collective punishment of an entire population, by using starvation and lack of water and medicine as a weapon? Is that going to destroy Hamas? I mean, Hamas is a resistance movement, and it's a resistance movement to a brutal occupation and a siege. You may not like how they do it, but that's what they are. And I would propose that the more trauma and the more hopelessness and the more injury, the more young men are going to turn to military solutions. And you have to ask, how will this destruction of Gaza, which looks to me to be, and to many other people, to be a genocide, the destabilization of the Middle East, how will this make Israel safer? I mean, already 100,000 Israelis have started demonstrating again against Netanyahu because they want a ceasefire, because they saw the only time the hostages came home alive was during the last ceasefire. So even some of the Israelis who were very gun-ho about this war are realizing that this has to stop. And I also want to remind you that while this is all happening in Gaza, things are really terrible in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The settlers have been armed beyond their normal amount of armed, which is already off the charts. And they've been incredibly aggressive. There have been 700 settler attacks since October 7th in the West Bank. They have killed more than 450 Palestinians. There's been a rise in land seizures, home demolitions, and there's also a tremendous amount of censorship going on in Israel amongst academics and media who are exposing this. So the question is, can we in good conscience defend this country and its policies? What happens to us if we stand by Israel during this time of catastrophe when there is extensive evidence of war crimes that rise to the level of destroying an entire people, of a genocide? So I would suggest that this is a time of great moral injury if we are inured to this level of human suffering. This is a time to examine and clarify our moral attitudes and convictions, the purity of our intellect, our thought processes, our compassion, and our spiritual values. We need to condemn Hamas's war crimes. We need to name the Israeli attack on Gaza as a genocide, and we need to work to make a ceasefire happen, to get the hostages released, and to get massive humanitarian aid into this desperate region. But then it's also important to address the root causes. If the root causes aren't addressed, this will undoubtedly happen again. And people are talking about we need to decolonize our solutions. We can't impose a solution on Gaza. This has to happen in the context of ending the oppression, ending the siege, and the occupation. And the other thing is that I think we need to hold our country, the US, which is funding this, and Israel accountable for all of this happening. And one of the things I really, really worry about is that there are all these international laws and humanitarian laws that were adopted after World War II that, even though this world has been terrible at actually fulfilling all these things, there is sort of a rule-based system in human rights law. And Israel's just flaunting this. And are they going to destroy that whole sense of international law and human order that we should be aspiring to? So I think that to look at this sort of in the big picture, what we Jews need to be doing is engaging in an anti-apartheid, civil and human rights struggle, which is really totally consistent with our responsibilities as Jews of tikkun olam, of healing the world. And I see such work as really a reclamation of Jewish values that have sort of gone astray, and that we have been corrupted by the behavior of a state that's not acting in our behalf. So in conclusion, I think the diaspora Jews are now reclaiming our legitimacy and our voice as Jews. We see the treatment of and solidarity with Palestinians as one of the big civil rights issues of the day. And really, how we as Jews, as a community, handle our new positions of power and privilege, which we have in this country, is really critical to the survival of our ethical Jewish tradition and a just resolution to this century-old struggle in historic Palestine. Thank you.
Yasher Koach. Thank you, Dr. Rothschild. I want to invite us to take a breath. My friend and partner, Rebecca Goldsmith, has taught me a lot already about when we're feeling something's challenging to figure out where in our body that's happening. So maybe you've got tightness in your shoulder. We were talking about this before. Maybe your heart is hurting. Maybe your stomach is clenched. Just send some love to that spot right now. I want to just let us think about what we've experienced. I'm sure there's differing reactions in this room. I want you to think about some of the facts that you've heard and some of the analysis that you heard. And you might not agree with the analysis. I actually not sure I agree with all of the analysis that we heard, right? But for those of us who feel that way, are the facts not true or are they true? And if we're feeling that way, it's on us to think about what do we do with those facts if they are indeed true? If we call ourselves Zionists, if we call ourselves lovers of this country, what do we do with that? And how do we stay with that? If you're in this room and you are feeling very much like this was the person who was speaking your truth, I want you to sit with that as well and know that there are people in the room who don't necessarily feel that way. And how do you stay engaged with those people? Because at the end of the day, we're still a community. So I'm going to invite you to feel connection to the people in this room. What does it mean to stay with complicated complicated feelings about facts and questions about facts and analysis? What does it mean to sit with that? And to know that you love the people in this room. How do we move forward with that? Like Dr. Rothschild said, this Talmudic page, right, where there's more than one position, and sometimes opposing positions on the same page. How do we sit together as a community like opposing arguments on a page of Talmud? In the weeks ahead, we're going to be talking about your Israel-Palestine story. There's going to be an event where we get to talk about how we're connected to this land. Rebecca and Mackenzie are going to continue to talk about ways, actually not talk about, we're going to provide pathways to experiencing these feelings and how this sits with us, and how to deal with fear and trauma and rage and confusion. Thank God for that. We are going to have an opportunity afterwards during the oneg. I don't know if you want to be in the here in the sanctuary, or if you just would like to informally chat with folks. What would people prefer? Would people prefer to come back here? Do you want to eat the cookies and not have to come back here? What's that? Yeah. And come back in this room? Okay. With cookies. Just clean up after yourself. Okay. We're going to go to page 121. I think it's 121. With a prayer that says, it's upon us. Aleinu, it's upon us to praise, and it's upon us to live a life of praise. We rise in body or spirit, 121. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, la'ted gedula liotzer breshit, shenatan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu, v'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 127, please join me. We'll replace the binary men and women with all people. And then all that has divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power. And then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind. And then all people will be gentle. And then all people will be strong. And then no person will be subject to another's will. And then all will be rich and free and varied. And then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many. And then all will share equally in the earth's abundance. And then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old. And then all will nourish the young. And then all will cherish life's creatures. And then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth. And then everywhere will be called Eden once again. Kakatuv b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo Ushemo Echad. You may be seated. We join together in our prayer for the end of hiding. It should be on a purple insert or a sheet, perhaps you have. Please join with me. As LGBTQ Jews, we are aware of the loss of integrity we suffer due to the pressures of the larger society. We often feel forced into a dishonest presentation of ourselves, to ourselves and others. The LGBTQ individuals who feel they must pretend to be something that they are not. The Jews who feel they must be alienated from their tradition and community to win larger acceptance. Both are victims of a theft of identity and integrity committed by the sexual, gender-identifying, or religious majority. Creator of the universe, we ask that our hiding draw to an end. We no longer feel we have to pretend, to promise falsely, to renounce ourselves, and that our fullest creative expression as Jews and as lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, and queer people be among the blessings you bestow upon us. And we say amen. This is from Bradley Burston, a prayer for the children of Gaza. Holy Blessed One, who is the creator of all children, hear our prayer. God, whom we call blessed, turn your face to these, the children of Gaza, that they may know your blessings and your shelter, that they may know light and warmth where there is now only blackness and smoke, and a cold which cuts and clenches the skin. Let them stand in safety. Heal them, deliver them from hunger and horror and grief. Deliver them from us and from their own. Allah, whose name we call Elohim, who gives life, send these children your angels. We call to you, God, whose name is peace. Bless these children. Keep them from harm. Turn your face toward them. Show them, as if for the first time, light and kindness and overwhelming graciousness. Look up at them, Holy Blessed One. Let them see your face. And as if for the first time, grant them peace. We say amen. In addition, we call forth in our minds, in our hearts, in our spirits, the names of those who have come before us and who are no longer with us, who have died and yet still make us who we are by saying Kaddish Yatom. I invite you now to share any names of folks that you are remembering at this time. Miriam. Jane.
Tommy Peterson.
Robin Thornport.
Ayola. Sorry. I am remembering my dad, Jay Rothbaum. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to unmute themselves? Marla.
My mother, Vera Gingold.
On page 1 131, I think. My page is just flipped. 130 and 31, you'll find Kaddish Yatom. It's our custom when we get to the part where it says congregation, the fourth line, where we all rise. First of all, you've done it already. I invite those who are in mourning to rise. When we get to that fourth line, we rise in support of those among us who are mourning. And in addition to those who die every day of war, of hate, of hunger, of improper health care, and infrastructure, of neglect, of abuse, those killed amongst the Jewish people, Al Kadush Hashem, for the sanctification of God's name. Kaddish Yatom, Mourner's Kaddish, 130, 131. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirute v'amlich malchute, b'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala uvizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehe shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam ulalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudasha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma, v'yimru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'yimru amen. Zecher tzaddik livracha, the memory of our righteous ones, always for a blessing. And we say amen. May be seated. Do we have an official announcement giver? Okay. Well, first of all, is there anyone who is visiting us for the first time who would want to stand up and say who you are? Everyone is a veteran. Yeah, you want to introduce yourselves?
First of all, thank you for welcoming new folks in at the level that you do. My name is Scott. This is my partner Neil, and although he's a native, I just moved here 2 weeks ago from Colorado.
Oh, welcome.
And I was part of the only Reformed congregation in Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs. Focus on the family.
Oh yes, not
Nice.
exactly gay and Jewish were not a great combination in that town.
Yeah. Wow.
But no. I want to say thank you. This is a very profound congregation, and the first thing that I looked for upon realizing that I was going to make a home here was a new place to find this community. I think that this congregation stands for the best of us.
Beautiful. Welcome. Shabbat Shalom. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Carter Garber, I'm a friend of Cobra and many others that you probably recognize from Dancing Fox, East Lake Commons community. So this is my first round, and came together with others that are not at all the first time. But thank you very
Welcome.
much.
Welcome.
Really appreciate the worship.
Good Shabbos. Sir.
My name is Fahid Al-Wahid, and I've been in Atlanta for 50 years. I'm the guest of Dr. Elise and Dr. Roach.
Welcome. I hope you come back. Anyone else? Well, so let's see. My name is Mike Rothbaum. I am your rabbi. Says it right there. Thank you. Who are our greeters? Oh, you want to do it? Oh my goodness. Abby! Our last Shabbos with Abby. Abby's moving on to fantastic things, and so we're a little sad, but happy for Abby. I don't know. You're in charge of this stuff. you're the one who would know. Isn't this on? Because we just heard. Yeah, this is Dr. Rothbaum.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to Congregation Bet Havarim, both to those of you who are here in person and to those joining us on Zoom. My name is Abby. I am staff. I work here, as Rabbi Mike would say. Thanks to our greeter, the open door, it is unlocked, so it's been really helpful. Thanks to officer on duty, Jason Sawyer, Lieutenant Jason
Lieutenant Sawyer.
So make sure to give that note. He'd like that. And thank you to our service leader, Rabbi Mike. Woohoo! And thank you to our guest speaker, Dr. Alice Rothschild. Correct? Yeah, Rothschild. And to our own sponsor, and for the folks organizing this, to the Palestine Justice Interest Group. Thank you all for being here. Very beautiful, important night. So a few upcoming events. Normally I put this up there, but I guess I don't have two of me. But so you'll just have to listen carefully. Tomorrow morning we will celebrate the Brit Mitzvah of Samuel Lindsay as he leads our morning service at 9:30 a.m. here at CBH. All are invited to join us for this happy occasion. It's hard to believe, but Passover is only weeks away. We will be holding our traditional CBH second night Seder on Tuesday, April 23rd. Have a special Torah of Taylor Shabbat, have a special Torah of Taylor Shabbat Haggadol service the Friday before Pesach, and enjoy a family-friendly Passover Shabbat Sababa on Friday, April 26th. Look for details in Bet Mail and on our website. The deadline for registering for this year's Seder is April 14th. Again, folks, that is April 14th. So please sign up if you have not already, or you'll hear it from Haley. Okay. Plan to join us on Earth Day Shabbat hike on Saturday, April 20th at 10 a.m. at Mason Mill Park. Register on the website and meeting details will be sent to you. Come imbibe the Bible with Rabbi Mike and friends on April 28th in North Lake. Where's North Lake?
It's just north of South Lake, right?
There you go. That's all you get, folks. Register on the website for more details.
Not far from you? Okay, you'll help me.
Nice. There you go. Ask Paul and Tom. They'll know.
If you register, you get the address.
Exactly. You register, you get the address. You do not have to talk to Paul and Tom to go. You can, though. Join daughter of a Holocaust survivor, Roberta Lynn Wexler, and Rabbi Mike for a Yom HaShoah observance on Sunday, May 5th at 6 p.m. Rabbi Mike will provide space for individual memorials of our loved ones. Are you frustrated, scared, and pissed off by the onslaught of voter suppression, anti-LGBTQ+, anti-choice, and anti-immigrant policies?
Yes.
Yes, folks. Then use your superpowers that you all are obviously born with to win elections. We have experts to tell us how. On Wednesday, May 8th, Despair versus Hope. You choose. Register on the CBH website and check out the poster in the lobby. Again, beautiful poster in the lobby. Get your dance on with internationally acclaimed dance instructor Steve Weintraub as he leads a session of joyous traditional communal dancing. All to live. So sorry about the feedback. I would do something about that, but we're gonna just go through it. All to the live accompaniment of the CBH band on Thursday, May 9th at 7 p.m. Beginners to Jewish dance, or klezmer?
Yes.
Yes, klezmer music are most welcome. Steps will be taught and led. And here's a question for you. Why does CBH embellish the Vishamru prayer with a loud, joyous woo? Why? Right. Well, on Friday night, May 10th, we'll tell you the little-known and long-forgotten story. It's a CBH exclusive. Who put the who in Vishamru? Details on the CBH website, Bet Mail, and beautiful poster in the lobby. Anyway, thanks all for being here, and I love the community. Feel free to enjoy the oneg, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
We love Abby! Woo!
So I just want it to be said. Pronouncing, we got Sababa, you got Pesach. Wait a minute. Abby, you got Sababa, you got Pesach, you got Vishamru, and you got klezmer. All right. More than most Jews. I wanted you to know that Yes, I'm very impressed. I see Margie is hovering.
Hovering.
You're hovering.
I just have to say that I wanted us all to thank Abby for being a great staff member and for being a wonderful friend to the community.
So where are they going to be? Okay. Okay. So there are also books available for sale by our speaker tonight, and we're not going to exchange money on Shabbat. And how are we going to do this?
Okay, so first of all, there are 3 books, and there are not a whole lot of them because this is the end of the week of touring. So there's one book called Condition Critical, Life and Death in Israel-Palestine, which is a book about health and human rights and that whole aspect of my documenting what's going on. And then I have a young adult book called Finding Melody Sullivan, which is a stealth Palestine book, so the teenagers will pick it up and have no idea they're going to end up in the West Bank. And then I have a middle grade book called Old Enough to Know that just came out. So each of these books costs, and also there's a free link article that's basically some personal reflections. And there's the little code that you can put on your camera and sign up for my MailChimp. So all of the books are $16. Since we're not exchanging money, you should bring it or send it to the temple, and they will reimburse me.
Thank you. Let us, and we'll stay in here for Kiddush. Yeah, Abby? Then we will finish. Oh, look at that. We will finish with Od Yavo. I invite you to rise and body your spirit if you'd like. Put your arm around somebody. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'akulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam Shalom. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam Shalom. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Savrei Chavarai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron lemase v'reishit. Ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh. Zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ki eleinu karata ve'otanu kidashta lavodatecha v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. And there's a challah somewhere, I know it. Where'd that challah go? Maybe the Palestine Justice Interest Group wants to lead us in Motzi. Yeah? You want to come up? Or not? Up to you. Nobody's moving. Greg, why don't you hold it? Wow, that's a beautiful challah. All right, there we got one or two. There they are. So let's touch the challah, or touch somebody who's touching the challah, touch somebody who's touching somebody who's touching the challah. And we'll make a chain of blessing all the way back to Farrell and Kara and Miriam. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'tei avon. Let's take and pass. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom to folks on Zoom. I can't see you, but I love you. Let's see. To Marla, to Peter, to Jill, to Susan, to Joseph, Sasha, Toby, and Maurice. Maurice, it's good to see you on Zoom. Shabbat shalom to all of you.
I just love to watch you guys talk. I just love to watch you guys talk. I can hear you.
We're doing.
We had announced